Why has no one told me about Ultrakill yet? This game is insane. Well, I guess a few of my viewers told me about it, but anyway, here's the intro. Video games are expensive. But according to Steam's refund policy, Valve will issue a refund for any game you buy so long as it's been played for less than 2 hours. So I figured I'd play some games I've never tried before and review them based on first impressions alone. If for any reason a game doesn't impress me within the first 2 hours, I'll be refunding it. Welcome to today's episode of the Steam Refund Review. So Ultrakill is a 2020 boomer shooter developed by a single game dev named Arsi Patala. All I really know about the game is that you play as a robot killing demons in hell, so I guess that sounds pretty cool. The Steam description for the game reads, Ultrakill is a fast-paced, ultra-violent retro FPS combining the skill-based style scoring from character action games with unadulterated carnage inspired by the best shooters of the 90s. Rip apart your foes with very destructive weapons and shower in their blood to regain your health. Okay, well, consider me intrigued. This sounds freaking sweet. I've mentioned this before, but I'm not always the biggest fan of shooters. I mostly dabble in RPGs and roguelikes, so we'll see how I feel about this game as we get started. The game seems to be very well received with a 97% overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam out of over 185,000 reviews in all languages. Let's see if I become one of those 97% of Steam users that loves it, or part of the 3% that would rather just save my money. So what did the game look like as we jumped in and within the first 10 minutes or so? Okay, well first of all I have to say that the sequence at the beginning that acted as a settings menu but looked like a computer boot up screen was genius. I could already tell without having even jumping into gameplay yet that there is a lot of attention to detail and a really good vibe here. After the cool boot up settings sequence thing, I was thrown quickly into a very short but effective tutorial in which I learned the movement tech and how to fight. Again, I was immediately impressed by the vibe of the game being so retro and nostalgia focused, and the attention to detail of the playable character being a robot was a really nice touch. Let's dive a bit deeper and see how I felt about the game as I progressed as the timer started to run out. Alright, so as far as gameplay goes, the Steam description really summarized it pretty well based on what I've experienced so far. You go around level by level killing progressively more difficult demons and other various enemies with different wacky weapons. One twist from other shooters in this game is that the enemies explode in a gory mess when they're shot, and this blood actually heals you if you're close enough, so it encourages fast-paced, upfront, close combat. Aside from this blood mechanic, there are also a lot of other really cool fun mechanics to play around with. The movement tech felt great. You could mid-air dash, slide for what felt like miles, ground slam, wall jump, and so on. Going in, I didn't expect the game to be level-based. The only footage of Ultrakill I've seen before is of people playing what seems to be like an endless arena and performing crazy combos, but I guess this arena is a different game mode that I didn't get the chance to play around with in the first 2 hours. But in the levels that I've played, the weapons I used were really cool because each one felt completely different to play with. Each one also had a primary fire and a secondary fire that had some really cool abilities. For example, the shotgun you'll get can fire just like you'd think a shotgun would fire, or the more fun option is to use it to essentially be a rocket launcher, and when you use alt fire, there's a huge projectile that'll come out and explode on impact with anything it touches. You can also buy upgrades at these little upgrade points scattered in the levels that will change what your alt fire does, like this one that changes your charge blast from the pistol to instead be a coin that you toss, and if you hit the coin out of midair, it'll automatically ricochet and hit the nearest enemy in its weak point. Oh yeah, and speaking of enemies, there seemed to be a pretty big variety of them, and there were also a lot of really cool boss battles at the end of some levels. My favorite boss battle so far was against this laser sword robot guy that dashed around and tried to slice you up while making a really menacing mechanical whirring noise. That's about the gist of the gameplay from what I've experienced and understood so far. But like I said, I only got to play the story mode, or whatever it's called when you play through the levels. I did see that there were some other game modes available, I just didn't get to play them. With gameplay out of the way, let's talk about the game's story just a bit. Well, it seems to be as simple as what I've already said. You play as a robot that's, for some reason in hell, fighting off demons and other robots. There may be more of a story as I progress further, but so far that's about all there is to it. I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad thing though, as the gameplay is so crisp, fast-paced, and fun that I don't feel like a deep story is truly needed in this game. Now, I gotta say the graphics in this game are just absolutely phenomenal. I know pixel graphics might not be for everyone, but for me, I really loved how this game looked. Everything from enemy designs to visual effects to the graphics themselves, just everything was pretty great. It also helps that because the graphics weren't hyper-realistic, the resources needed weren't super crazy, which meant that the game could be played fast-paced even with a ton of assets on screen, which is how the game is supposed to be played. And last but not least, the sound design was also really good here. The music was exactly what you need when jumping around levels shooting demons in the face. The enemy and boss sound effects were also great. Like I said, the sound of the robot sword guy was super menacing and creepy and awesome all at the same time. I also gotta say that the skull laughing at you after you die is such a nice touch, and that sound is still stuck in my head after dying from this boss called V2 like 1,000 times. I did eventually beat him though. So overall, after playing this game for 2 hours, how am I feeling? Listen, I try not to cuss on this channel because I want to keep it family friendly, at least as much as I can, but the only way to describe this game is that it makes you feel like a freaking badass. Somehow playing this game literally just makes you feel so cool. I sucked at it as someone who doesn't play shooters very often, and even I felt like I was a pro gamer. Dashing around the levels, killing demons, fighting giant bosses, it all felt amazing, especially when coupled with the great music and awesome sound effects. I actually don't think that I had any complaints about this game while playing, aside from the fact that the fast-paced nature of it made my left hand hurt from moving my character around the map so much at what felt like 100 miles per hour. So as always, before giving my final verdict on the game, let's talk about the game's value for just a second. The game is priced at 25 buckaroonies when at full price on the Steam store, and How Long to Beat reports the game takes 12.5 hours to beat its main story and 46 hours to fully complete. I'd say this is a pretty darn good value so long as you're a completionist, but maybe just a bit short of a game if you're only doing the main story. So all that being said, what would I rate Ultrakill on a scale of 1 to 10? Based on my first 2 hours I've played so far, I'd say this game gets a 9.5 out of 10. If it wasn't for making my hand hurt and the game maybe being a tiny bit expensive unless you're a completionist, I'd say it's a 10. Either way though, it's a great game. So for all those reasons, on my Refund It or Replay It scale, I'd easily give this one a definitive Replay It. Alright, you guys know the drill. Tell me what game you want to see me play next in the comments. Like, subscribe, I'll see y'all in the next one. Okay, love you, bye.